Good morning. Well, it's a very windy morning and a rainy morning in Donegal. It's the 30th of September, and I've done a podcast for this weekend, which will go up this evening at 7 o'clock as usual. And it's about November, so you might think, well, did I get the month wrong? But no, I know that October is beginning tomorrow, and I know that in Irish it's called Jerifor, the end of autumn. So September they call the autumn, and then Jerifor. 4 weeks that you mark the end of autumn, the real, going down into the zero of winter. And winter begins then with Samhain. Samhain is it's like the month of the dead in every culture, really. For some reason, the light is declining out of the sky, and we're going down into that real dark winter time. And in it, we celebrate the people that have passed away, the people who've gone before us, marked with the sign of faith, the ancestors, all the souls, all the saints, all the beautiful people we've known and are no longer there. And I've written a book that's out now called All the Things Left Unsaid. And essentially it's a book of regrets and confessions, a book of love. And they're love letters to people that I knew and who passed away suddenly. And I had that trauma of realizing I can say no more to them. I cannot look at their smiling face ever again and tell them how I love them or how I appreciate them or how sorry I am for hurting them in various ways. It's all over. So that's what I'm going to be doing in October. For the next 4 weeks, on a weekly basis, I will be trying to stick as close as I can to Buddhist ideas. Now, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a scholar. You know this. What I'm sharing with you is my experience, and what I'm sharing is my story, my remembering of things that happened, and just sharing stories. That's how I begin. For example, this weekend's podcast, I begin with 2 memories and from August. So I'm sharing with you my story, but I'm going to focus in October on Buddhist ideas. And I think about Buddhist ways of looking at the world, and I think about Christian ways of looking at the world, and sometimes through a friend of mine who helps me with the Islamic ideas, I try and look at the world in that perspective as well. And I feel that it's so liberating to look at the world through these different perspectives, because what it does is it gives you a kind of a relative sense of each of them. You begin to see relatively where are the differences, and then you really raise your eyebrows when you begin to see the similarities. That the fundamental ideas, the fundamental path, or the fundamental kind of journey towards peace is actually the same journey in all those religious traditions. And I dare say hugely the same in Judaism, which I suppose I don't talk about much, only because I just talk about what I know, but also because there's one single book by Martin Buber. It's called I, Thou, and that's the one book in Judaism that, even though he's a 20th century philosopher, I see him as having the kind of quintessence of a Jewish philosophical perspective. And I find that absolutely essential, and it imbues everything I say, is the sense of the other as sacred, that there is an ontological difference between me at the surface level and the depth of being within me, which is actually a kind of an otherness, is kind of like a mother holding me. And in that sense, everybody I meet is the beloved. Everybody you meet is a sacred manifestation of God's presence with you. It's a great Jewish idea, and it runs through Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That sense of there being one single being, God, ground of being. And that's the presence. That's what George Steiner talks about, the real presence. You find it in art. For me, that's the fundamentals of art, without which you can't make art. The same as poetry. Poetry is prayer. Life is prayer. So, for October, I will try to focus myself as much as I can on Buddhist ideas. And it'll be very much a way of kind of running into the huge and wonderful and beautiful remembrance celebration of Samhain and November, the month of the dead, as they call it. And in a way, I suppose what I'm doing is, because we're going into a winter, it's always difficult for people who would be melancholic or depressed or whatever, because we're going into this winter where we're going to be scorched. It seems, apparently, they're saying we're going to be scorched by bills to do with electricity, and we want to keep the lights on, and we want to keep the heating on, and if it's just like pouring out a whole lot of money that we don't have, people are going to be in a lot of stress. And so I suppose I want to try and create an alternative to that, a space where you can, rest in a kind of peace and use your own tactics, whether they be modernist or secular, whether they be Christian or Jewish or Hindu or Buddhist or whatever, that you can use, this podcast as something that encourages you to be prayerful and to hold yourself in prayerful disposition to the world as it comes at you in the winter. And in that sense, I think that I'm hoping, because I've had a few dark winters myself in the past 10 years, I have to admit, but I'm hoping that this winter is going to be really, really very beautiful. Really very, very, because I'm going to try and hold to my sort of calm abiding, if you like. I'm going to try and be prayerful, pick little moments in the morning and the evening and so on and so forth, to try and rest in a kind of a mindful, calm abiding. And so, I hope you join me. I hope we enjoy October as we think about November. And I hope that despite the windy weather here in Donegal, you enjoyed the podcast this evening, and that you have just a beautiful weekend. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.